That's a damn shame. At this point, you need a security for the whip. What it seems is that people have gotten desperate since the influx of cash from the pandemic has dried up, leading them to turn to low-hanging fruit.
It's a problem all over the country. Thieves smashing vehicle windows to steal what's inside. 31,000 smash and grab thefts. Less than 2% of them were solved.
Dude casually broke into my Tesla and walked away. Life in the Bay Area.
The Bay Area has always had its fair share of crime, especially with the uptick in car break-ins, also known as Bipping.
Get off your ass, little nigga. I know you tired of stressing. I'm finna give your ass some game or go a free lesson.
We don't bip old schools. Don't bip the old schools. It's somebody trophy, man.
Last year, the city of San Francisco experienced 31,000 smash and grab thefts. Less than 2% of them were solved. Insurance experts say it's impossible to 100% prevent smash and grabs, but they recommend taking your valuables with you or hiding them in the trunk.
Damn, Herb, you fucked up with this one.
It is a sad fact that out-of-control crime in San Francisco is driving many businesses like Salesforce right out of town, as well as many other smaller but more beloved institutions. But if you have the temerity to stand up and voice this obvious truth, progressive Democrats will smirk and wave a sheet of spurious crime stats in your face, thus proving that you're nothing but an ultra-mega extremist and that San Francisco has never been safer.
And I just want to know, where do these statistics come from that people use and say, oh, it's as safe as it's ever been? These are just right-wing talking points.
San Francisco has challenges with crime, with public safety, and we're doing everything we can to deal with it. But just because people are seeing it in a more heightened way because of social media videos and sadly sometimes people jumping to conclusions, it's unfortunately made San Francisco a bit of a target.
But one factual data set they can't seem to hide from is the record number of car burglaries San Francisco is currently besieged with. Commercial auto glass and insurance records cannot be so easily massaged by SFPD in the way that other crime stats can. And we are left to deal with the stark reality that in San Francisco, there are between 50 and 70 car burglaries committed each day. And we've had to deal with it on our own because in the past, San Francisco PD has shown little interest in going after this lucrative Prop 47 protected criminal enterprise. That is up until September 30th, 2023, when officers from Tenderloin Station observed a car wanted in an armed robbery and several car burglaries. Because of the armed robbery aspect of that Tenderloin SFPD interaction, it was a felony stop. More on that a little later. But first, some background on car burglary, a misdemeanor. Car burglary, as our criminal code refers to it, is the act of busting out car windows and stealing all the stuff inside. And we know there's nothing new about car burglary in this town. But in the last 10 years or so, we've all noticed a huge spike in car burglary. And along with that spike has emerged an underground culture that is promoting and perpetuating the crime. Members of this youthful crime syndicate have coined the term bipping to describe the practice of using a spark plug or a special tool called the Rescue Me to quietly shatter car windows. We've all seen the videos of what happens next, and we've all wondered why it is that these crimes are carried out so brazenly in broad daylight in front of large crowds of shocked onlookers, most of whom are nothing but tourists looking to spend their hard-earned tourist dollars in a starving tourist economy. And as for that car I mentioned earlier that was being stopped by cops in the Tenderloin, well, before that car rolled into the loin, it was up here in this bitch. That car, a blue Kia with stolen Oregon license plates, was spotted earlier in the day at the Palace of Fine Arts, just casually bipping away at several tourist cars with seeming impunity. This bipping scene you see now using a stolen Audi was recorded a few days earlier on the 27th of September, and it very well could be the same crew. Now, the crime tour has unofficially observed that organized bipping crews do seem to prefer daytime work in touristy areas, while squads of Honduran cartel soldiers prefer to augment daytime fentanyl sales with lucrative rounds of late-night bipping in middle-class neighborhoods.
So when cops from Tenderloin Station saw that bipping crew, they tried to pull it over. But the driver didn't want to stop. He took off.
SFPD initiated a pursuit that took them at high speed through the Loin, south of Market, and eventually onto I-280 at the 6th Street on-ramp. As the chase proceeded south on 280, CHP joined the pursuit, and a total of 8 law enforcement vehicles matched the 70-mile-per-hour clip the blue Kia was doing, even with a flat left rear tire riding partially on the rim. Now at the border of the Bayview and the Portola districts, they exit 280 and merge onto 101 South. But the bipping crew was not to travel far on 101, for they shocked their pursuers by pulling an insane last-second 4-slot lane change to make a do-or-die shot at the Paul Street exit off 101. There's a strong possibility that the pursued vehicle was planning to make a run west up Mansell for the criminal safe haven of McLaren Park and onto the Sunnydale projects. But we'll never know, because the physics involved in a 70-mile-per-hour attempt at the Paul Street exit are absolute, and the car lost control and barreled through the intersection of San Bruno and Mansell, where it jumped a curb and slammed headlong into what police described as a fixed object. That fixed object was in fact a large granite slab erected by taxpayers, welcoming folks to the neighborhood. But the sad reality is that this particular criminal enterprise had been terrorizing San Francisco for many years. And to pull a crazy stunt like running a deranged high-speed rampage through this busy intersection on a busy Saturday afternoon, they display their callous level of disregard for the life of innocents, who in this case are miraculously spared. Standard procedure for SFPD would have been to release at minimum the names of those involved in the crash. But Chief Bill Scott refused to provide the press the names or any information about what these guys were wanted for that had precipitated the chase. Fortunately for the citizens of San Francisco, investigative reporters Stanley Roberts and Susan Dyer Reynolds have dug deeper into the case and were able to reveal not only the perps' names, but the details of their long and violent criminal histories.
The driver of the blue Kia, 26-year-old Marcellus Gaydon, was pronounced dead at the scene. His one passenger, 27-year-old Michael Humphrey, was seriously injured and taken to General Hospital, later transferred to the infirmary at County Jail No. 2. It is not clear what, if any, charges he faces, but what is clear is that it is a miracle he survived this terrible crash.
But this duo's long history of violent crimes against the people of San Francisco would soon be revealed, despite the best efforts of the Democrat elite to suppress a stubborn rash of embarrassing details.
Gaydon and Humphrey had a decade-long connection to a taxpayer-funded scheme concocted by progressives to keep miscreants like them out of jail.
Roberts and Dyer Reynolds uncovered the fact that both of these guys in this crash had been recipients of hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars doled out to none other than violent felons. This duo of Bippers had been enrolled for years in a dubious job training program for youthful offenders with gun violence on their rap sheet. The money they received was salary they were paid in a series of no-show jobs they were signed up for with corrupt DPW. Job training programs for felons are known as diversion programs. because they allow corrupt DAs a slick diversion to actually prosecuting criminals into jail. And dewy-eyed Mayor Ed Lee was a pushover for the restorative justice rhetoric sold to him by shadowy nonprofits like Five Keys and the fraud-ridden young community developers. This jobs program to rehabilitate felons with gun violence on their record is known as the IPO program. The Crime Tour is 100% on board with any attempt at criminal rehabilitation for gun felons, but we stress that it should never replace incarceration for any who still pose a threat to society, and that for the safety of the community, rigid criteria in how the program operates must be adhered to. We insist on a schedule of strict professional supervision of trainees at all times and full accountability for the enrollees and program administrators. And in gang-infested San Francisco, an assurance must be made to the public that any potential job trainee could peacefully work side by side with a member of an opposing street gang.
Sadly, in the case of the IPO program, not one of these benchmarks was achieved. And the Crime Tour learned of that sad fact in December of 2015, when it was robbed at gunpoint right up here in McLaren Park by two unsupervised Rec and Park trainees enrolled in the IPO program. And the guys in the Bipping crew crash were working in the IPO program at that time. Could it be the same guys? Maybe. But if there were two guys in the IPO program robbing while they're supposed to be working, well, there were probably a dozen. Masks and hoodies prevented a positive ID of that crew, but the orange vests stuffed into their back pockets was all I needed to make them as full-on IPO. 12 weeks later, in the same area, another crime was done by two park workers who were also on the clock when they did their deed. Might have been the same two that had jacked us, but this particular crime was much more serious, and they were free to do it because the DA and a judge had diverted them from serving a prison sentence for prior gun felonies they'd committed. This diversion from jail would allow them to learn job skills in the IPO. It is just a little unclear, however, which job they were gaining skills for. We encourage you to watch our video on this case. So San Francisco has devolved into the kind of psycho world where armed robbery and double homicide is casually carried out by convicted felons enrolled in some kind of dubious yet highly paid job training program for gun offenders. And now we see in the Paul Avenue crash, IPO workers have been running amok for years doing crap like bipping and smash and grab. Well, as usual, the voters of San Francisco take it in the shorts because they got no one but themselves to blame for enabling this utter failure of the justice system. Radical DAs told you what they were going to do, and they did it. They shoved restorative justice programs like the IPO way down our throats, even though they know it's going to get a certain number of people robbed and killed, because that's an acceptable loss in their war for equity. But the inescapable truth is that it's not going to stop there. Armed robbery, smash and grab, bipping. Just let the progressives fix it.